Good morning and welcome to City Views. I am so glad that you took time to join us today. My name is Rebecca Naker and I represent Ward 2 on the St. Paul City Council. And I am thrilled to have with me as my guest today, Nicole Goodman, who is our brand new Director of Planning and Economic Development. And I will welcome Nicole in just a second here. But before we get into our conversation, just a little bit about the City Views series, which I've been doing for a few months now. The purpose of this is to give you an inside look at how city government works and to give you a chance to meet the people, the actual human beings who are doing that work on a daily basis. My hope is that these conversations will help you understand the challenges that city officials face and also see them, see me, see all of us as real people who are grappling with really complex challenges every day as we try to serve the city. You can ask questions just by typing into Facebook right below this chat, and we will do our best to ask as many of them as possible. Just a reminder that we keep the conversation on City View civil, so please ask questions in that manner and in a genuine spirit of curiosity. And if you missed previous interviews, you can always just scroll further down my Facebook page and you can see interviews with many other city leaders. But for now, I am thrilled to officially welcome Nicole. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I've been joking that you've been on the job for about 7.5 weeks, and so I thought it was time to put you right in the hot seat.
It's fine.
I know you can handle it. So tell me, first of all, I mean, I think people would probably appreciate just a quick introduction to who you are, where you're from, and then tell us about the job of a PED director.
Okay. I am from Oklahoma City. Again, I've been here, like you mentioned, maybe 8 weeks now, getting into 8 weeks. So I worked in Oklahoma City for 16 years. I came from a nonprofit that was contracted by the city to manage economic development programs. So I did very similar work there that I do here, though it was a little bit different structure, and we had a little bit different government structure. Here, we have planning, economic development, and housing all in the same department. So those are the departments that I manage here in the city. And it's just very. I just saw the chat pop up for a second. It distracted me. It's really interesting. Very cliche, like the public sector. I wanted to do this kind of work that's impactful, right? That really impacts lives, and so that's why I was interested in economic development.
So I think a lot of people, I think this is going to be a good conversation because people think about economic development, they think about planning, they maybe know a little bit about what those things are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely something that touches people in their neighborhoods, right, in their daily lives. But what is your job actually like? What does planning and economic development mean?
Right.
Housing is part of that too. So what is the work
Right.
and then what is your job specifically like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's a little bit, people have different definitions of economic development, different things that they think about. And there are lots of pieces. Here in St. Paul, our department has a mission. It's like has a mission statement. And the mission statement is, I'm going to read it to you. To build community wealth through business, jobs, housing, planning, financial, and cultural assets. So it's all of these things. I think when people when families and communities have assets, and assets could be a home, a business, job skills, access to capital. So assets are what allow people to build a future. That's how you can send your kids to college. That's how you can save for retirement. That's how you can survive a downturn like COVID-19, right? Is having assets. And I think many families and communities have been left out of those opportunities to build wealth, often due to, frankly, systems of institutional racism and redlining and things that have gone back for generations. So that's the mission of our department. So it's broad ranging, but really, if you're looking for sort of the bottom line, a lot of it is about wealth building. Not so that someone's wealthy. That's not what I mean by wealth building. I mean like so that the assets are there for families and communities to sustain.
So what so far do you like about the job, and what is challenging?
Right. I love the job. I love this work. This is what I've been doing for 15 years, and so I'm passionate about it. So I appreciate that I am one of the very fortunate people who loves their work, right? I get up every day and I love to go to work, and that is not lost to me. I know that I'm very fortunate for that. But my days are very busy. It's busy. I have my staff. I have 75 employees among the three departments, and we have multiple projects. Again, scanning all of those sort of topics that I mentioned, right? So some are in housing, and some are in creating a new business, and some are in building a development or an actual building, or so it's varied and it's broad, and my days are really, really busy. And I have, like many people, we're doing like back-to-back video calls all day long, which is interesting because we don't have time in this environment of doing everything online. You don't have that break where you're physically like walking to the next meeting or walking to we're on all the time, right? We're on from morning to night. So that's a challenge. I would say my biggest challenge is I came here. I moved here during COVID, right? I moved here during this pandemic, so I haven't met any of my employees. Like, I'd see them this way. I've met a few. I haven't met you. Like, I haven't met so many people that
I assure you.
Do what?
I'm loving it. I assure you.
I know you are. I haven't met so many people that I work with every day. But I see them. I see this way. But I think that's a challenge. I think it's fine. We're getting through it, and we're doing it. The act of physically moving here was more challenging because of COVID. It's just like the challenge of that's really the challenge. I think learning what's happened here, and there's a learning curve, and I'm not from here, so there are things that I need to learn. I think that's the fact that I'm not from here is actually fine in a lot of ways, because I don't bring any baggage. I don't have, like preconceived notions. I'm probably driving everyone crazy with all the questions I'm asking, but I can question, because I'm new here. So that's kind of a good thing in some ways, I think.
I think I consider myself still new, even though I'm starting my second term on the council. It's amazing what you get when you ask dumb questions, right? Like, you learn.
There's no dumb questions, like
right.
Many questions. And my questions are not like criticism. It's more just like, why do we do this way? Is there maybe a better way? Have we thought about a better way? I don't ever want the answer to be just because that's how we've always done it, So right. just questioning things just to see.
So sort of to that point, what you mentioned COVID earlier, and COVID clearly has had an impact on economic development in the city. Can you talk a little bit about what the impacts are that you're seeing now on economic development and or on planning and housing, and how are you anticipating that those are going to play out as we go forward?
This is really like an unprecedented time, really, like, and you've said those words too. It's just the fact that this has happened. Sometimes I still can't believe it. I still can't believe that we're in this situation. And here in the Twin Cities and in other cities, but here, on top of COVID, we had civil unrest, right? We had the murder of George Floyd and the physical and emotional damage that came from that in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of job losses and unemployment. I think, obviously no one has a crystal ball. My near-term sort of concern is I think it's going to get worse before it gets better in regard to, people are still drawing unemployment, or they still have some sort of break on their student loan payments, or there have been sort of some immediate helps that won't last forever. And as those begin to run out, that concerns me. I think it could get worse before it gets better. There are industries that may not recover for quite some time. And what happens, just think when you're starting to think about things like, how do you get people to go back to the offices, and what happens if they don't? I don't know. What happens if people don't go back to the offices? Then what happens to the commercial real estate market? There's all these sort of domino effects that we're all looking at, right, in my industry, like imagining what are all those collateral impacts that we haven't even seen yet, right? And we're so much right now, everyone in this just surviving the situation mode, but we have to be looking ahead. We have to be reskilling employees whose industries may not come back, or who may not come back for quite some time. So I think it's going to be challenging. I will say this in my experience in Oklahoma City, and I'm not comparing this situation to the situation that we have here, but I wasn't in Oklahoma City when it happened, but when the Murrah bombing happened, when the Oklahoma City bombing happened in 1995, things I mean, it was so bad. It was so bad for the economy. It was so bad. There was so much damage. There was so, it was hard. It was really hard. And it was already a time in Oklahoma City where the economy was struggling. And I think as horrible as it was, that it really galvanized the community. Like everyone had to come together. And so I hope that as we come through here in St. Paul and everywhere in the country, but here especially again with additional challenges, that it's like it's something that galvanizes the community to even work harder to come together and recover. And the most important thing is that to me is that we recover in an equitable way. We don't want to go back to the way it was. We don't want to recover and then still have huge opportunity gaps, right? So let's take this opportunity of this multiple crises and really kind of having to reinvent things to do it better this time.
We're absolutely, and you're doing great because we're getting questions from the audience. Which is keep the questions coming if you're listening in. I want to ask just one more before we dive into the questions we're getting. And this is a very, very practical on the ground question. I often hear from constituents, we want more small businesses. We want, and specific small businesses. We want more business downtown. We want more grocery stores on the west side. We want an ice cream shop. We want businesses. We want local on brand. What is the city's role when it comes to the private market, private property? What can we do to encourage to come and specific types of businesses? And what do you think we could do better in that area?
Right. There's so many different roles. The city plays different roles. There are tools that we have, right, for various different things. There are financial tools, there are training opportunities, there are pieces of land that the city still owns in some cases that can be redeveloped. So we have lots of roles, and it often depends on the need. For example, if there's a piece of the community, a section of the community that doesn't have a grocery store, like that's a very, it sounds simple, right? It sounds simple. It's not. It's very complicated. The grocery store margin is extremely razor thin, so they have to be very strategic about where they can put the store, and there has to be X amount of numbers of actual homes, within a given area. So it's all this sort of behind the scenes information that has to be gathered, and it's always more complicated than it sounds. But we do have multiple tools. So I think as we're looking at each situation, each opportunity or place where there's something that's missing, be it business or jobs or housing or whatever it is, we did have to look at what are the challenges, what's missing, and it'll be different with each one. What tools do we have? What partnerships? What can we do there? So I think what we do here really well is partner. And even what surprised me is that the private sector and the philanthropic community are so involved. Yeah. I'm not used to that. What the city did, what the roles that the city played in Oklahoma City, they did well. They didn't have such strong partnerships in financial participation from the private sector and the philanthropic sector. That is impressive to me.
Yeah.
I think what we don't do here, and it's not, again, I haven't been here long enough to form judgment. It's not criticism, but I like criticism. I think telling our story. I've heard that maybe it's like a Minnesota cultural thing that if we have something good, we don't want to tell someone about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be a little bit of a little bit of something that we could maybe do better is cities and businesses and companies want to come to a place where their employees would like to live, right? And in Oklahoma City, there was a point where we lost a huge deal back in the 90s because the corporation said, I don't want to send my employees there to live. Why would they want to live there? Mm-hmm. So we, for 25 years, have made investments in making it a better place to live. And this city is a wonderful place to live. I think that's even the motto or the tagline. It's a livable city. And there are many, so they're telling that story, getting that story out there, even though we're like, oh, it's kind of a secret that, right. It's such a great place. If we want to attract companies, we have to be willing to toot our horn a little bit and, maybe more than we do.
Yeah, you're so right. If we're doing something good, we certainly wouldn't want anyone to know, right?
Right.
Very, very true. We talk about that a lot in the city.
Yeah.
We're always, sometimes we're so busy doing the work we're not talking about it. We're not talking about
not talking about it. And that's you know what, that's common also. Like I think we're all and anyone could do this. You're working. You're like, you've got your head down, you're working, you're pushing forward, but you need to stop, pop up and say, look what we did. Look what we're doing.
Right.
Like, tell your story so that it's, so you're telling your story.
And we have such a good story to tell. Okay.
We
So
have
we're getting lots of questions. We're going to need to be brief because we have just half our time left.
Okay.
So there's two questions that I'm going to kind of combine.
Okay.
One question, Harrison, thank you for asking about community-led development projects to change blighted areas, to get more commercial real estate investment.
Yep.
What's your experience working with community-led development, and what do you think about it? And maybe you can kind of combine that with the question from Merritt about what can residents do to support the city right now as we are going through these many different crises all at once.
Right. Community engagement is so critical and so important, and I know that's a priority here. I know that I can see that every project with the district councils and the structure that's set up for multiple avenues of community engagement. It's fantastic. I think it's important that that when we share plans or development projects and things, that we're sharing like all the information, right? So we can go and we can show a plan to the community, but if there's not sort of basis in like financial viability behind the various options or whatever, that's challenging, right? We need to communicate the whole situation. Like this is a development, this is a piece of land, these are our goals, and we want to know what the goals are. And then when we know what those goals are, or the criteria, or the city's or the community's priorities are, being honest about saying, okay, if your priority, if your priority is like X amount of green space on this piece of land, that's going to make it hard to do these things that you want there, right? So like being honest about the challenges of achieving various different levers.
Right.
And I think sometimes that isn't communicated, not just here. That's a common sort of challenge with community engagement is you go and you say, what would you like? And the community says, I would like this. And then they say, okay, thanks. And then then the developer comes back and says, like, literally, that's not financially possible, Right. And then the developer's a bad guy and the city didn't listen. And so it's like being clear on the whole picture with and honest, and then getting that honest feedback.
And so to the question then about what residents can be doing right now, certainly, I know I've been talking a lot about the importance of just getting out and supporting our businesses by buying from them.
Yes.
Winter is coming. That's becoming increasingly important. There's some great tools. Visit St. Paul has a great listing of all the restaurants, and they offer takeout, curbside delivery, dine-in, etc. So there's resources like that. But are there other things besides just kind of consuming, I guess, that residents can be doing?
That's hard. It is hard because the things that we don't think about are like, if you spend money in St. Paul and you spend whatever you spend, your sales tax dollars support like the cultural star, right? So when people aren't spending money, then those sales tax dollars are less, and then that it's just all a ripple effect, right? So definitely supporting local businesses, supporting here in St. Paul, spending your money in St. Paul in the city is always good for all the programs that are led by that. Gosh, I think it's tricky. This is hard. This is a hard time. So definitely just spending your dollars, trying to you have to be careful, right? Everyone's trying to figure out how can they support business when they're not going indoors, and it's starting to get cold. So it's a challenge. For me, I'm new here, and the only way I have to meet people is on patios. So I am like going to all the patios. So if any of you have questions about where the good patios are that have the heat,
ask Nicole.
I'm going to all the patios. But no, that would be like my best advice as far as supporting businesses go. And then other ways and other things is just get engaged with, anything. That if there's a community meeting, go. And vote, like be an engaged citizen. That's the most important way that the community can help with everything, is just be engaged. Don't just complain, and I'm not suggesting any of your constituents do this, but there are constituents, they're not happy and they're complaining, but they're not getting engaged or coming to the meetings or providing their input. And That's the best way to help.
And Harrison had mentioned this earlier too about district councils. And we are actually going to have district council executive directors on the City View series. We have 4 in my ward. So I'm going to actually, I think I have 5 in my ward, but I'm going to have 4 over the next few weeks. So that's another way that people can get involved in district councils are often working really closely with your department, right? On very specific area.
Very close.
Development.
Yep. So. Yep. Again, I've just been here a couple of months and I haven't gotten to attend any district council meetings yet myself, but I've watched several as I've been learning about each of the developments and figuring out where we are in like the major developments, figuring out where we are in the process and what have been the community's priorities. I've gone back and watched district council meetings, several of them, and it's really helped me to understand the community's priorities. And as a whole, I think we have very engaged citizens here, and I love the district council sort of structure and process. So I'll be interested to watch some of your guests that you have from the district councils. It's fantastic. But even then, like when I watch the district council meetings and they have really excellent questions, it's making sure that input is incorporated, and if it's a challenge, that we give that feedback. Like we hear you. And here's like in application, this is like, these are what the challenges are. So let's talk about how can we achieve all of these things?
Yeah, no, that realistic communication and being honest in what is possible is so important, because I think I've been part of many planning processes where, if what you've planned doesn't end up happening or end up happening for decades, I mean, that can be really demotivating. People spend their time giving themselves and engaging, right?
I never want to go gather input just for the sake of gathering input. Like it's really important to like get the input, but it's, again, like you say, it's thoughtful in input that then it continues to be a conversation, and it's realistic communication and feedback both ways.
Yeah. Great. So moving on back to our questions. So Chris asks, since communities of color make up almost half of the population in St. Paul, what are some of the ways that we can address racial disparities, in particular the wealth gap and job opportunities? And I actually think I would like you to talk about that also from the perspective of, workforce development, job creation actually is Ramsey County's responsibility. So we have this, right? We do economic development, we bring in the jobs, but then the actual like training and workforce development, the county does. So can you talk?
I think that it's interesting, the relationship between the county here, and I'll admit, like I'm still learning who's playing what role, because they are different roles. Like the county in Oklahoma City, it wasn't the county, it was actually more of like the technology centers and the education system that we partnered with as the city, not the county so much, but some of the county. Anyway, I think it is just like that very specific partnership of, if we're working on a company's coming in, or we're developing an area that has jobs that are being created, or jobs that exist. When I was working in Oklahoma City, we had an area that we were working on called the Innovation District, that were all these healthcare jobs right next to a community with high levels of unemployment, and the jobs that were right there they weren't 4-year college jobs. They were like, we could do like 6 and 9 month training programs and then connect people with jobs that were like walkable, like right next door, So we worked with that with the technology center and the university and just everyone together, and said, this is like not that hard right here. We can put a specific job training center in this neighborhood near this campus for these jobs that are 6 to 9 month training, living wage, good jobs, radiology technicians, those kind, and that changes lives, right? Suddenly then there are jobs. So it's finding the opportunities and then connecting. I remember Jeremy Nowak as an author who passed away last year that works in economic development and in building wealth. And he said it's connecting, it's growing your economy and connecting the people to the economy. Where do you make those connections? How do you make those connections? And that was his life's work that he was working on. So that's something that we study and that we work on.
So, and I know that this year in particular, there's the department is planning some investment funds specifically for BIPOC, right? For Black, Indigenous, people of color owned businesses.
Yep.
And of course, we've raised our minimum wage in the city. We've done a number of different initiatives to try to specifically address the racial disparities that Chris is asking about. Do you want to talk at all about the BIPOC specific funds that we're talking
about? We have funds for to sort of lift up to certain populations and certain we have a program that we would like to develop developers, right? There are individuals who would like to be a small developer, say, I want to build a duplex, or I want to build a small, I'm don't just tell me how this can happen. Like, I want to do it. I want to be part of it. Don't just ask me how this development will impact me. Tell me how I can be a developer. And we hear that a lot. And so there are many ways that we can do this, and we can sponsor programs or sponsor someone to go through programs, but we also have our own levers. Like I was working on a project the other day, and a developer was interested in doing something that was going to have an expense involved, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like that's an expense that we can cover through one of these sources that will that's a barrier that it's breaking down barriers, frankly. Mm-hmm. And the barriers, some of them have been there for, again, generations. So it's identifying those barriers and figuring out how to knock them down. And we will use some of our funds. That is the focus of the funds that we have this year.
Yep. I love that idea, having people move from asking about how the development will impact me to becoming the developer, right?
Because that's what community engagement has been a lot in the past, right? And so we go into communities and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Let's, instead, like, how can I be involved in this? Okay, then let's figure that out. Let's figure out if whatever it is the reason that you're not, let's figure that out.
Right. And back to district councils, I have to put in a plug here for my neighborhood district council, the West Side Community Organization, which actually has created an equitable development scorecard so that whenever development it's intended, not just intended to benefit the community, but there's actually metrics that the developer has to agree to ensure that's just another effort that is underway.
And that's the way we need to rebuild. And that's the way we need to always progress. It's just a commitment to doing that. It's just a commitment to finding the barriers. If access to capital is the problem, let's improve the access to capital. Let's, whatever those, if it's experience, if you can't get experience because you don't have experience, let's connect experienced developers with inexperienced developers and help them get that experience. It's breaking down those barriers.
So when is information about that specific development program going to be available? I know it's
very soon, actually. It's in our budget for this next year. So we do our budget, a few months ahead of time. But we're developing the programs now. So I would say by the end of the year, there will be information out by the end of 2020 about these programs. We're still developing everything, but.
And kind of back to the communication question. This is another question that asked us. We do often struggle to communicate, and I think the disparities in terms of who gets information are there too, right? Like they cross all sectors, all types of work we do, including communication. So can you talk a little bit about how your team is working to get the word out about communities?
It's harder right now. It's harder because not everyone has a computer.
Right.
And, everything is it's harder. We aren't having community meetings, right? We're not going and having community meetings because of COVID. So we do actually have another thing in our budget, another piece of budget to look at different technologies. But that's going to be a challenge right now. Like we'll do every possible thing to get the word out. And we're just looking for those other avenues. So, every community group that we can share information with, it'll just be a little bit harder, and we're just going to have to try a little bit harder, and be more innovative in how we get the word out and how we gather information. It can't just be an online survey. Not everyone has access to that. Sometimes an online survey is the best way because someone, doesn't have a car or doesn't want to come to wherever the meeting is or whatever the reason. We have to cover all of those. And it is, I will say, like with COVID, it's harder. Right. It's harder right now. So we're working hard on that.
Well, we need all the help we can get, right? So the folks who are on this call, who are tuning in, if you're watching this later, I mean, we use your platforms to help us get the word out. We're always saying
absolutely
do it alone, right? So we are at time, but I have a final question I want to ask. I know it goes by so fast, but I just want to ask if there's one thing that you want people to know about the work of planning and economic development that I think maybe they don't, what would it be?
Yeah, I think it's just that people don't think about that are the point. It's not just about building a building or building or a company coming in or X number of jobs. You know, you hear like the headlines, right? But it really is about building community wealth. And I'll say that this city, the commitment to equity and innovation and resilience is why I wanted to come here, because doing this work without the compass, without those core values as a compass, it really is just like real estate development. You know what I mean? Or it's not about the human. And so I'm thrilled to be here and to be doing this work here with these stated values as a compass. It's important.
Well, we are so thrilled and lucky to have you here, Nicole. Thank you for being part of the conversation today. Thanks to everyone who's tuning in now as well. I really appreciate people taking the time to be engaged. The series continues next week, same day, same time, same channel. We are going to be having a conversation on how to resolve neighborhood disputes. So I'm having some folks, I know it's going to be interesting, from the Department of Inspections, from our city attorney's office, and from our police department. So if you have a problem with a neighboring property, if you've never quite understood how the city can help get involved in neighborhood issues, this might be the conversation for you. So I hope you can join us. Once again, you can scroll down to see previous episodes of City Views right here on Facebook, and this one will be recorded here for posterity. So hopefully we did a good job, Nicole. And until next time, everyone stay safe. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.